Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with a bit of Livecast gameplay this time around. So, yeah, let's see how things go. My opponent does appear to be choosing good old dwarves. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to do this with wood elves. Always one of those somewhat risky attempts, but wood elves obviously do not have the best of matchups against the dwarves. Oh no, it looks like maybe it's going to be lizardmen. I don't. Oh, it's okay. It's whatever. We'll fight the Lizardmen too, if that's what they want to do. Definitely want some War Dancers with Azrai Spears. I think those are basically a must against dinos. I think we'll bring a Glady. Glady's never a bad idea. We'll scrap the Eye of Kurnus. I'm not entirely sure if I actually want to bring around a dragon, or just settle for a giant eagle. The dragon's not that good, honestly. I could even settle for a horse, honestly. I think the eagle's good for flexibility. And we do have Prayer of Anathrema, we do have Arrow of Kurnus, we have some War Dancers, Azrai Spears. And yeah, so we're going to need something to... Instead of bringing cavalry, we're going to bring, I think, some Hawk Riders. Once again, because I think they're a decent pick. We'll bring a Branch Wraith for sure, because I don't really see any reason not to bring a Branch Wraith. We'll scrap all those things. Scrap Melkoth's Mystify Miasma. We'll scrap that. We'll scrap that. We will bring, I think, the Withering and Earthblood, though we're probably just going to end up using Earthblood. Minus 22% magic resistance is always very good, and we will try a front line of Dryads. We'll try a mix of Dryads. Actually, we'll scrap that. We'll do front line of Eternal Guard, backed by a few Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts. And presto. And we'll see how this goes. This might go disastrously. I don't know. Not entirely sure how good of a build this is. It's a lot of shooting. 4 units of Starfire Shafts. Should melt everything, though. The Lizardmen don't have much defense against that sort of stuff. Now, I didn't bring any War Dancers, which means that my front line is probably not going to be able to win. Eternal Guard don't do the best against Arse Warriors. They're definitely a lower tier unit. Their armor obviously is, well, they don't have armor, very much armor. They have 40 armor. Their melee defense is their primary protection, so that could be a little rough. We'll see. It depends on how many Arse Warriors my opponent brings. That said, we have a lot of shooting, so if my opponent decides to bring monsters, he's going to get wrecked. And if he decides to bring, honestly, for most units, I should have a decent run. And the biggest problem here is if my opponent decides to just spam. If my opponent just decides to spam Star Warriors, because I really don't have much of a counter to that. I do prefer Eternal Guard, though, for front line as Wood Elves, because they have shields, which helps against King Skirmishers. And they also have a defense against large. They have anti-large, they have anti-large armor piercing, and so that's really just good. We'll see how it goes. It might not be the best idea. Well, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It could go either way. Should be fun. There we go. Okay. So finally loaded in after a very long loading time. Maybe loading in. Alright, there we go. Finally. So let's see how much our opponent brought. It's very small, very elite. Okay. The 415 means we might be looking at a few Temple Guard backed by monsters. Which is good and bad. We'll see. We got our Azrai Spears. We'll put them in the back. In the worst case, we can always use our Hawk Riders as a pseudo defensive unit. This could be rough. I really don't know. This is a very small force. Now, with the proper fire or proper focus fire from Starfire Shafts, we should have a good chance here. But it could be rough. Now, and the other problem with Eternal Guard compared to Dryads, though, one of their problems. This will be our primary line, I think. But one of the problems with the Eternal Guard is that they are susceptible to Fear and Terror. Obviously, they're still pretty tanky, but we'll put these guys in Group 3, Group 4. You can be back in Group 2. But they are definitely... So what do we got? We have Croxigors on top of Source Warriors with shields. This is actually interesting. I was actually not expecting this. When I saw the body count for my opponent, I assumed it would be like a Horde of Temple Guard. That... Mazda Mundi. Oh, look at that. Interesting. Interesting choice. Alright, so my opponent's going to try to bait me out with Pistolodon's Solar Engine, so we're going to have to push in. I'm not going to... gonna get the Hawk Riders clear though, because I don't want them taking death laser hits. But yeah. And we'll just start picking away at the Stars Warriors with our Glady. Now, this is another reason not to bring Dryads. They're very susceptible to Bastillate on fire. So it's a very iffy thing. The whole thing with Wood Elves is just very iffy. It's very back and forth. We'll try to focus on the Bastillate with the Solar Engine. And we're just gonna focus on there. There we go. Okay. And you can see the poor Bastillodon over there just does not stand a chance. He's just getting absolutely mauled. And we're going to pull back the... even if he does get a cast of like some healing at this point, I think he's in deep, deep trouble. My opponent does have a Verification Crystal, so it is entirely possible that he will decide to use that, and he does, but it doesn't matter. We're going to focus on that now. That's the next target. We're going to use a Prey of Anathrema to keep it locked in place, and we are going to use an Arrow of Kurnus over there. Now, because we don't have a charge defense against large, or charge defense at all, we will decide to commit our guys at this point. And yeah, it's all looking fairly good. Now, they did drop a banishment, but it doesn't... it's not the end of the world. It's not fun, but... that does seem like... oh, God, that was brutal. Destruction of... that was destruction of cities, I do believe. We'll go after the Croxagores. We'll pull back our archers. And we got some feral cold ones, so tough luck for them because I'm having none of that. So we're still holding okay. We're holding okay. Now,
ready to hunt. Withdraw! Glade guard. Moving. Ever ready.
things are definitely not looking great, but they're also not looking terrible. Which is an awkward way of being optimistic, but it's they're not looking terrible. It's honestly, I think this is going rather well. These guys have been routed off. We can pull back the War Dancers. Our Branch Wraith is still kicking some serious tail over here. We can get our Glade Guard clear. The problem with the Glade Guard is, of course, oh, we picked him off. We got a Death Laser firing away at us, which is annoying. That was actually going to blind these guys. It's going to drop their stats by a huge amount. But then we can get our War Dancers in there, and we can keep picking away at these Stars Warriors. Honestly, oh god, that's Comet of Cassandra. That's actually an interesting choice. I'm personally not a big fan of that spell, especially not against Wood Elves. I don't know. I think it's fairly wasted. All right, bring Fatso down over there. The War Dancers will be able to chase him down. We're still applying pressure. We're gonna catch Mazdamundi over there, and we're gonna keep working over. He did get a thing, but it gives him 44% magic resistance, which is a little frustrating. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna dive in on him and melee him because that's reasonable. Now over here. Okay, he's getting a Bastillate onto our rear line. Alright, they're doing okay. We're gonna the Branch Wraith really shouldn't be there though. And now we can start working on the Bastillate with the Solar Engine. There have been a few droughts here and there, but it's not the end of the world, honestly. And we can finish Mazdamundi off with either the Hawk Riders at this point, or honestly, probably our Glady, which can do the trick. She needs to focus on this guy. These guys need to get clear. I think they might actually be fast enough to outrun this guy. Oh, they're not. That's 40. And that is the Shatter. So I think... so going over that, I forgot to save. I should save in case this doesn't work out. But regardless, so this was a very elite force from my opponent, and as you saw, basically all of his monstrous units kind of melted. I really do think this is kind of an optimal build for Wood Elves. Now, there's a big problem with this build, which is the fact that Eternal Guard are susceptible to Fear and Terror. They're the only infantry unit that Wood Elves have that is susceptible, that is not immune to psychology. So of course, when your opponent if your opponent gets some crazy rear charges or just plows through you with monsters, it can be a big problem because your Eternal Guard, despite having really high baseline leadership, it's not like they're kind of like dwarves, in the sense they won't immediately break. They can get terrified by, say, Feral Stegodon plowing through, or a Bastillodon or a Bastillodon with a Vacation Crystal or whatever coming through. Otherwise, I definitely think the War Dancers Azure Spears are a must-have. They're amazing. They can basically shut down anything the dinos bring. Even the they can keep up with everything, which is really nice. They're kind of unlike a lot of other anti-large, like say Blackguard or Chosen with Halberds or whatever. These guys can actually keep up with basically every monster that the dinos put on the field. I think Stegodons are a tiny bit faster, but it doesn't make too much of a difference. And they can keep up with the Croxigors. They can keep up with. They can keep up with. They can keep up with Croxigors. They can keep up with Bastillodons, which is really important because two of the things you often see are the Bastillodon with crystals and solar engines, and against those, the War Dancers is really, really potent. I think Hawk Riders are not a bad pick. I'm personally not a fan of Wild Riders. I mentioned this before. I'm not a fan of Wild Riders in the matchup of Lizards versus Wood Elves. Now, obviously, your opponent could bring Skinks, but the problem is that Skinks are still fairly quick, and they'll poison Wild Riders. And the Wild Riders will take a while to catch them. Wild Riders do have 85 speed, but they'll still struggle a little bit just to get on top of them sometimes. And by the time they do get on top of them, they're kind of beaten up, and you have to even if you bring a shielded variant because they just have no armor. So I'm personally not. Plus, you are committing a 1,200 point unit to chase down a 600 point skirmisher. So I much prefer the Hawk Riders because they have armor piercing when they go into melee. They're cheaper than Wild Riders, and they can also just poke away at enemies. They can just poke away at Saurus Warriors and stuff like that rather well. If I were to do something different, I might have tossed in a few Dryads into this build, perhaps. But otherwise, not much different. Definitely, as you can tell, the Gladiator with Starfire Shots is absolutely brutal. 2, 4, then 3, and 0 kills. But the kills are irrelevant. You can see the XP, which is ridiculous. These guys got 2 chevrons. These guys got 1. These guys got 1. They just annihilated the Bastillodon. They annihilated the Feral Stegodon. They're basically like handguns with a lot more range, especially against the slow-moving dinos. So yeah, good game to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. As you see, the Saurus Warriors completely trashed the Eternal Guard. The frontline engagement was not much of a contest. Saurus Warriors easily out-quality the Wood Elf frontline if you do this sort of build. The only way you could really beat them is in a straight-up frontline engagement is probably by bringing a bunch of War Dancers and Wildwood Rangers. In retrospect, that was a bit of a mistake with my Branch Wraith. I brought Withering on the Branch Wraith, when really what I should have just done is not brought that. Saved myself some points there. But it's okay. Saurus Warriors, but yeah, Saurus Warriors are good. The Feral Cold Ones got caught out by the War Dancers, and that was bye-bye. Croxigors I don't think are... in general, I'm not the biggest fan of bringing monsters against Wood Elves. And like I've said before, Wood Elves have a lot of immune to psychology. They have a lot of shooting. They have nets with the Glady. Managed to net down the Verification Crystal, and that was night-night for it. Yeah, so I'm just not the biggest fan, honestly, of those sorts of things. But against Wood Elves. Mastamundi was an interesting pick, and that magic shield actually is not bad against Wood Elves, who tend to have a lot of magic damage. Unless they bring Way Watchers, all their armor piercing ranged is magical. So just an interesting little tidbit there. It's not necessarily a bad choice, but anyway, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below to keep up with additional content. If you guys like this sort of format with Livecasts, I can try to do this more often as well. I'm not entirely sure if you guys enjoy this more or less. And yeah, make sure to let me know. If you have any comments, criticism, as usual, leave them down in the comments. I'll respond as soon as I can. And yeah, that's, I suppose, it. I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.